Robin Hood Radio presents Stage Right or Not with Michele Willens. Michele is a longtime journalist and herself is a published playwright of several theatrical works. She's a frequent contributor to the Huffington Post, Daily Beast, and the Atlantic websites.
Another opening of another show.
Okay, well, first some news from the theater world. The Girl from North Country, featuring the music of Bob Dylan, which temporarily closed on January 23rd, with the promise of returning this spring, will return for a limited engagement from April 29th through June 11th. That one, which I thoroughly enjoyed twice, nevertheless seemed like a long shot for Broadway, but we shall see. The other musical that paused, Mrs. Doubtfire, starring Rob McClure and directed by four-time Tony Award winner Jerry Zaks, is also coming back later this month. Mrs. Doubtfire is kind of exhausting, but a family show. I would presume both those productions are hoping for Tony nominations that will carry them along. The biggest Broadway show to take a break was To Kill a Mockingbird. Now that one already received its Tonys, but we are still awaiting word on its official return. But meanwhile, Mockingbird began its coast-to-coast national tour last week in Buffalo, New York. We'll then move on to a venue in Boston. Richard Thomas is in the Atticus Finch role on the road. More amazingly, Mary Badham, who played Scout in the movie, is in this production as an elderly gulp and nasty neighbor. Oh, I wish I had saved the letters I received from her when we were pen pals as little girls. Mockingbird, of course, was adapted by Aaron Sorkin, so we have news on him too. Next season, Lincoln Center Theater will bring Lerner and Loewe's Camelot to life once again when it produces a new version of the classic tale, reimagined by, Aaron Sorkin, to be directed by Bartlett Sher. Camelot is scheduled to begin performances on November 3rd at the Vivian Beaumont Theater. Now, that's a long way off. The world could change 3 times by then. FYI, another classic is next up at Lincoln Center. That's Skin of Our Teeth by Thornton Wilder. It's just starting previews now. On another subject, last week here, I reviewed favorably, you'll remember, Dominique Morisseau's latest at the Signature called Confederates. I mentioned that there was no curtain call, which I had not experienced before. Well, the New York Times offered its explanation. It wrote of the, quote, moment when even the most ruthless plays admit that they love the audience, it comes at the curtain call, and Confederates refuses to give us one. Morisseau has written a comedy about black women who are ready to burn down their institutions. She doesn't provide any closure other than rage, end quote. Well, I knew there was some thought behind that decision. It's funny, I spoke with another critic the other night at another show who had just seen it. He said, I asked about the curtain call thing. He said, yeah, the audience was confused. They finally turned the lights on and we all got up and left. Now, for what I saw this past week, one is Suffs, S-U-F-F-S, at the Public, but I cannot review that officially until later this week. So stay tuned for that. My only preview word is wow. And then I moved from off to on Broadway to see Paradise Square. This is a big one, as in 40 performers on the stage. An obviously costly musical that started in Chicago. Now is hoping to find an audience here. The story centers on a woman named Nellie who runs a saloon, semi-boarding house, and maybe brothel in the Five Points neighborhood of New York during the Civil War period. But the real battles are between the freed blacks of the time and the many Irish immigrants. Now, if this sounds like the movie Gangs of New York, it is the same period and exact story pretty much, though it's a musical filled with singing and dancing. The show has some excellent performances, including Wakia Kalukango as Nellie, a definite Tony contender, and some big numbers. But for me, the music is not very memorable. The dancing is good, but there's too much, and it's repetitive. The idea of a dance contest between the blacks and the Irish is smart, but once would have been enough. The Stephen Foster character, yes, that music man was there when at that time apparently, doesn't quite amount to enough in this show. I saw it with an enthusiastic audience, but it was close to the opening. I wish the show the best, but that said, I wish it were better. Now, things up or that you can go up to or watch at home or something, York Theater Company on East 76 is this month offering a musical called Penelope. The title character is married to Odysseus, the king of Ithaca. For the last 20 years, she's been waiting for him to return from the Trojan War. Meanwhile, a bevy of suitors have gathered, each wanting to marry her and take over the kingdom. To keep herself busy, Penelope writes letters to herself and pretends they're from Odysseus. Little does she know they are creating the story of the Odyssey. Well, sounds fun. York Theatre Company always entertains us, and that one stays up through the month. Speaking of wars, well, we go from the Trojan to the Vietnam. I often mention the unique theater of war company here. Well, I am truly looking forward to its next one, which is called The Education of Corporal John Musgrave. It's on April 13th at 7 p.m. I can remind you again next week. The big news here is that it stars Oscar Isaac, arguably the hottest actor anywhere these days. It's based on a powerful new book. It's about the effects of Vietnam. You can register to watch it virtually via Theater of War. The Wild Project, downtown New York, is offering the United Nations, the Border and the Coast, written and directed by Cameron Darwin Bossert. This is for a limited engagement through April 17th. The performances are at Wild Project on East 3rd or it's on their streaming platform. Subject matter certainly sounds timely. Well, a week ago, feels like a year now, was the Oscars. Of course, all anyone will ever remember of the 94th was The Punch, heard around the world. Was that great theater? Maybe. But speaking of theater, we should give our own curtain call to supporting actress winner Ariana DeBose, who was known for her stage work primarily. And now comes the news that the Oscar-winning film Coda, in which a hearing child of deaf parents pursues a passion for singing, that's being developed into a stage musical by Deaf West Theater. Now, that's a highly regarded Los Angeles-based nonprofit. All makes good sense. Finally, I want to mention something happening Wednesday, April 6th. It's called Holy Sparks. It's a co-venture between the Braid Theater of Los Angeles, which focuses on Jewish women's stories, and the Hebrew Union College's Art Museum in New York. Starting this week, an art exhibit goes up celebrating 50 years of female rabbis. Jewish women artists were assigned different rabbis to create something to anything they felt like doing. They're very different and they're very powerful. If you're free Wednesday night, you can attend in person or live stream it, during which a quartet of performers will read the actual words of the rabbis. After that, it will be available to stream for about a week, and the art exhibit, of course, stays up for a while. Again, that's through either the Braid Theater or the Hebrew Union College. You'll find that. Anyway, lots going on. Next week, I'll be discussing a revival about baseball, well, about a unique man who plays it, and a new piece about women earning the right to vote. And Jill, that one I think has Pulitzer written all over it.
Well, we will see. So are you, how would you grade, and this is probably an unfair question, it's not literal, it's more of a abstract. You've now been out and about for the last 3-4 weeks?
Oh, yeah.
How would you grade the combination quality, attitude, like what would you say if someone put you on the spot like this?
Well, they do all the time. I'd say that a lot of the stuff is pretty good. That's up now. A lot of it is pretty good. Whether it'll stay up is a question. Audiences are still nervous. I have to tell you, I was taking somebody this week to one with me. She got cold feet. Some people just aren't ready to sit in a theater. That's a whole different issue. I think the quality of the work is pretty good up right now. The shows are not having long runs, and that could be for whatever reasons. That the audiences just aren't there, the tourists aren't here. You know, the usual ones are doing well. Six is doing well, Wicked is doing well, Hamilton's doing well, Hadestown is doing well. Those kind of, the loyal audiences, Lion King is doing well. They're still there. New generations, and that's exciting. And as for the quality, I don't know. I'd give the quality about a B- right now, what's up there and what I've seen. But, hey, they're trying and they're doing different things. And, I'm there to support them.
And from a, what used to be called experimental standpoint, because the things that you mentioned are like, the things that are doing well and appear to be mercifully typical more typical Broadway fare.
That's right.
And where you may have more cold feet are the people who used to and who were huge supporters of, hey, if it's I knew people, I think I still know them, who will see anything,
Yes.
whatever it is, which is great because they are the huge supporters of the live theater, and without them, we would be nowhere. But it's also in that group, depending on the demographic, that I think that you're going to have chillier feet than.
It's still hard to do something new and different, I would say. There's a large number of revivals right now. I hadn't even thought about that until right now. Many of these shows, How I Learned to Drive, Plaza Suite, Macbeth, a lot of these plays opening in April are revivals. What does that say? I don't know. And the ones that aren't, like, North Country, it's harder, I guess, if they don't have listen, Company is up. I'd say the majority of shows right now are probably revivals of some kind. Music Man, obviously, which is the biggest hit on Broadway. What does that say? I don't know. People don't want something new. I think they will. It goes slowly. They usually start off Broadway, frankly. Hamilton did. The one I just saw, Sups, did. I don't know where that goes next, but I could see it going all the way. But, that's usually where they start these days. It still takes a very creative, original person with a lot of contacts to people with money. Let's face it, you need a lot of money to put a show up. And the investors are still there. I know some of them. They're trying to do unusual things. They're not just investing in old Broadway shows. I'm telling you, they want to be part of the new crop. So anyway, it's still a very shaky time, as it is everywhere. Let's face it, nothing is a given. April is going to be a very big month. All the new shows are opening in April. It's the deadline for Tonys, and it's the time they're going to make a decision about mask mandates in theaters. So we'll keep you informed, I promise.
Stage Right or Not with Michele Willens, produced in the studios of Robin Hood Radio, robinhoodradio.com.